Good morning, art peeps. I am super excited to have you with me today. It's all about weaving. There's a little bit of watercoloring in, so if you want to play and practice with us, you can certainly do some watercolor on paper. And then if you have something like a piece of construction paper or even a grocery store brown bag that you can make a little weaving mat, you can do that. That's the first lesson. The second lesson is definitely going to be, even if you have a pencil and some yarn or some cord. I brought some t-shirt because our guest said that we could. But what I wanted to say is the first lesson talks about how it really doesn't talk about this, but it's implied how our lives are woven together. And I mean, each one of these webinars and my guests have been exactly that. It has been a way that we have woven together what I'm doing and what the world of art education is doing. And when I say I mean Nasco. And so I would like to introduce Caitlyn Thompson. I met Caitlyn through a friend. Caitlyn is one of the art teachers of Instagram at Art with Coach T. We put a handout. So there's a handout that says abstract watercolor weavings and Art with Coach T. Just the generic basic information there that you will be able to use as resources. But she met some Wisconsin teachers at NAEA. The Wisconsin teachers connected her with me. My heart melts. And then I sent her a message and we had a Google chat all during this distance learning situation. And so I would like to introduce Caitlyn Thompson, otherwise known as Art with Coach T. Hi, Caitlyn, and please tell me a little bit about why Art with Coach T. Where did the Coach T comes from? And let me just tell you, love it.
Thank you. Hi, it's good to be here this afternoon. Officially, it is the afternoon, isn't it? Is the afternoon for you? No, not yet.
Yeah, we are 11 and you are noon. And I forgot to tell that this amazingly big artist, art educator comes from the tiny little state of Rhode Island.
It's true. I'm in the future. It's exciting. It's still very humid. I don't know about you guys, but I'm doing very well this afternoon, this day. My name is indeed Caitlyn Thompson, or Coach T. I go by Coach T because I'm a big believer in growth mindset. So it's all about the power of yet, but like as an avid weightlifter before all the closure and injuries. So I'm working on rebuilding myself. But that being said, I really love relating everything back to muscle building, make our art muscles strong. It's amazing.
We love that.
Yeah, I mean, and then like it hurts. Growing muscles kind of hurts. It's not that comfortable. So my whole philosophy is based around that like feeling of you got to be a little comfortable getting uncomfortable, because that's when the growth happens. So when you feel that frustration brewing, that's your like frustration fuel. That's your art muscles about to like surge and pump, and then boom, a big growth happens and you come out the other side bigger and stronger and even more awesome. So that's what I love. And I just didn't feel like a Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson, ew, it's very down to that. That's not me. I'm like Coach CT, yeah. And it's great. The kids love it. I love it. And I feel cool.
I completely, you oozed cool out of the computer when we were talking that day. And as you were just talking just now, I'm writing furiously notes like, being uncomfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I have been doing some videos on these project guides for students. And so Nasco has had lots of lesson plans for a long time. This one is volume 36. Theresa Holt from Missouri was an art educator. I think she's actually even retired now. But she shared this lesson plan with me and I loved it. I gotta be honest with you, it stems from this book called Wilson Gordon McDonald Partridge. I did put the name of the book on the handout with the author and the illustrator. And honestly, this one speaks straight to me because it's about a little boy who lives next to a nursing home, and he befriends a woman who also has 4 names. And his parents are, I'm not going to tell you the whole book, that's crazy, but long story short is he helps her remember. And so there's nothing about weaving in here, but it does, the illustrator was very watercolory. And so the weaving that you see in this video on how to do this lesson plan. The lesson plans are created for teachers by teachers, and they have all the tips and the techniques and how to do it in the classroom. The project guide, which lives on Nasco Educate, our Career Resource Center, is really designed for teachers to give to the students so that they have a visual, and the lesson plans works great in distance learning. So while we get ready for our video, we will let Caitlyn get ready for her demonstration because she's going to take weaving to the next degree. And I'll give you an opportunity to watch the video on the project guide on abstract weaving, and hopefully you enjoy it. Hi, I'm Kris Bakke with Nasco Education. Super excited because Nasco has over 100 Artworks lesson plans available online at Nasco Education. And we also have a Career platform resource called Nasco Educate. I love that we have teacher resources and they can go and use these lesson plans, but we've recently switched a few of them to a student lesson plan, a one sheet that just makes it easy for a student or a parent to be able to do this at home as some learning is happening at home. This one, I'm going to read the book to you because sometimes I goof the name up. There's a book that's attached with it. It's called Wilson Gordon McDonald Partridge. And it's a great story about a little boy who happens to have 4 names, and he lives by a senior center. And the woman that he befriends also has 4 names. And so he helps her with memory, and it's just really a heartwarming story. The teacher that created this used the lesson plan, not like there's not a weaving in the book, so it's not this direct you make something out of the book, but I think she sort of showed how our lives weave together, which is very cool. So I'm going to give you sort of a quick instruction for how students would do this at home. Just take a piece of paper and fold it into 4s, and you're going to use just a pan watercolor set. Once you fold it into 4s, you are then going to start creating watercolor techniques. So here I've started with the resist using crayon and watercolor. This one is splatter. This one's completely done, wet on wet, and then just simply taking a dry brush and putting the watercolor on the paper. From here, of course, once it's dry, you're going to cut it into 1-inch strips. So you're going to also do that with some black or a color that maybe contrasts your watercolor. Black just looks really cool. I will tell you though, I'm going to give you a little bit of an art teacher hack, is if you fold your paper down, that's going to be the weaving, you can cut it. That's my finger scissors. You can actually use a real scissor to cut it and make your 1-inch strips, because when you open it, you technically will have your 1-inch strips, but they will be attached. It just makes it so much easier when you go to weave them together. So this one I didn't do it, and those first pieces of those first strips just were a little bit hard. Once you get a few in there, it kind of holds together a little bit better. But if you do it this way, easy, squeezy. So once I get my mat completely woven, I'm just gonna glue it on the back of another piece of construction paper. If you don't have a lot of construction paper or paper at home, this actually can be done with just recycled paper. I used not a garbage bag, I used a grocery bag and magazines, and I did my little hack, and this one just came together very quickly. You also glue the ends down. That helps them not to flap around, and you can always trim them if they're a little bit uneven. But I think there's a ton of fun to be had here. I like that this particular lesson plan is attached to a book, but you can do a wide variety of things with it. We want you to take these lessons and build off of them and even show us what you did with them. You can email me at kbakke@nascoeducation.com, and I look forward to seeing what you make. I seriously did love that particular project, especially when I found the hack. And I love the fact that you could do it with magazines, newspaper, and this was a Woodman's grocery store bag. Yeah, I threw out the name Woodman's there because I actually worked there for 8 years of my life. So, Caitlyn, are you ready?
I am ready. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to turn the stage over to Caitlyn, and we already see your beautiful piece of art. So take over, and I will throw out some questions as people ask them. As for the question about is this recorded? It is recorded, and the recording ends up going on Nasco Educate. And so, yes, thank you.
All right, can you see everything okay?
Looks great.
Awesome. I want to get rid of any sidebar, no extra.
Oh, and Caitlyn, we can see your project, but we also see your desktop.
My desktop. That's okay. Let's go like this. Woohoo! There you go.
Perfect. Does that
Beautiful.
work? Did it work, Andy? Nope. We still see your desktop. So does she just need to click stop sharing screen?
Okay.
This is distance learning at its finest, friends. You know what I mean? We just figure it out. You are perfect.
That's
Thanks
it.
You can see it.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I appreciate you. So this first of all, let's all give an awesome shout out to Kris's rad weaving. I love that type of weaving, and that's actually what I start with before I get into any of the other kind of weaving I do with my second graders. So I start weaving in second grade. I will make the leap next year to teach in first grade. It was on the to-do list this year, but alas, we know what happened. Anyways, during closure, I discovered that I could totally do a weaving-ish project with my younger friends by using a stitch that I've learned through the Instagram community. And as well, I'm going to show you that, which is the Raya knot, and I'm going to show you sort of a typical weaving that I do with my second graders. You'll forgive my neutral colors. I'm all about them neutrals. In school, I get a little more rainbowy and more colorful, but you can't knock me. This reminds me of cookies and pancakes and all the carbs, so that's that.
Beautiful.
Right? But this one is colorful, and all you need for this project is a handy dandy stick from your yard, but you don't just have to use a stick. It could be a pencil. It could be a wooden dowel, an old paintbrush that's just totally glued and you forgot about it, but you can use it for this. So what I'm going to do is scoot this out of the way and show you what I showed my littles. And this lesson is on my website and YouTube channel. You can find them both. What I do is I grab any length of yarn. You'll want to remember that the length of yarn will be halved. So if you want a longer hanging, I believe this is called a wall hanging, maybe a tapestry, whatever you want. Anywho, you have your long piece. I have 2 pieces of yarn here. This is Buttercream Luxe Craft. I don't know how many years ago I got this, but it's coming in handy now. Anyways, what you do is you fold it in half.
I do like the color and texture of that
Right?
And I
It's
know you
wicked.
said you also use some trait text, and they have some cool thick textury type stuff too.
I
Keep
do.
going.
I do.
I'm
And I'll
sorry.
totally. Oh, no. I'll tell you all about that when we get to the next one. So for this project, what I like to do is make it simple. And this is for like, I give this to my kinders and my first graders. At least I did over the remote learning, and the success rate was pretty rad. So what I tell them to do is make a U. Lovely. It's a U. Put your stick or dowel or ice cream popsicle stick without the ice cream on it on over your U. Grab the feet, stick them together, and you just pull them through the loop, and you can use your pincher fingers here to grab it and just pull right through. Now, please understand, I am an amateur weaver. I have recently got into this. I am totally inspired by the amazing Nova Mercury and Roving Textiles. Those are both folks you can find on Instagram. Just really beautiful textures, and weaving is just super meditative. And if you need a moment to like not speak, as I often do, because I will keep talking if nothing else is distracting me, weaving is really meditative and glorious. And as you can see, it's super quick. And what I love about the Raya knot, you can use any kind of material. Kris showed us before, she's got the t-shirt yarn going. You could use twine. You can
Caitlyn,
use,
I'm doing it with the t-shirt and a
oh man, is it awesome?
Oh my gosh, it's so cute.
It's so
You'll see it when we
delightful.
come back, but it's all about Caitlyn right now.
Ah, it's cool. We're all about sharing. Well, I don't want to like keep going with this, but you get the idea. You just build it, build it, build it, tie a little knot on either end with an extra piece, and voila, you've got the most glorious wall hanging you ever did see. Now, I think what I want to do eventually is do this on an actual loom and make just a series of Raya knots. I'm into Raya loops as well. I can show you examples of like my personal weaving. Like this is just a big bubble stitch, but this is the traditional Raya loop. And then if you lift up underneath, look at how handsome that looks. Right? Yeah.
I
If I
love
could hear
that
you, you'd all be
puppy
going,
stuff.
oh yeah, that poofy yarn, that's my roving. That is just wicked. So I feel like I have explained the Raya knot effectively enough. Let's flash forward. It's like I'm Julia Child and we've cooked and we're great. And here's the finished product. You know, that's my Julia Stiles, real Julia Stiles, not Julia Stiles. Who am I thinking of? Isn't Julia Stiles an actress? What am I saying? I don't even know. Julia and Julia.
Stiles and Julia Stiles, yes. One's a chef, one's an actress.
Right? You know what I mean? And then I just say Meryl. So anyways, back to weaving. I want to give you guys the origin story of this piece. When I was a student teacher, my practitioner, Amy Broder, amazing lady, she did this whole project inspired by the kente cloth of Ghana, and she had this whole Ghana unit in her school. It was a school-wide thing. And what moved me most about it was the use of color to tell a story, because the colors in traditional kente cloth have very specific meanings. Now, when I do this with my kiddos, they get to choose the meaning of their piece, and they can tell a story using the color of their yarn. So, but that's just one aspect. There's so much more to this that I want to get into. So you'll see that I do chop off the ends. I don't go back and forth. This was just me I went rogue and I just did it. Anyway, Julia Child, that's what I was trying to say. Sorry, I just had to correct that. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm a movie fan. Shame on me. Anywho, back to the weaving. What I do when I start this lesson is I want the kids to use a bit of both sides of their brain. So we use codes to create patterns. And those codes are based on numbers. So each number represents the amount of colors you use. For example, and these worksheets are not available yet. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm not going to give you this. I want to make it nice, not on graph paper and with real imagery. So you guys be patient. These worksheets will be out eventually. Anyways, what I do is I present this with numbers. If I have one color, then my code is 11111111. And the pattern you'll get is just a horizontal stripe, as you see right here. But if we want to make more patterns, we have to get into more complex codes. So if I have 2 colors, the code might be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And that will create these vertical stripes you see down here. Now you can do another code with just 2 colors, and that would be 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. And that is this fishnet-ish pattern. And of course, you can move on to 3 colors where you get this multicolor vertical stripes here. So that's how I do it. And I just want to let you know that we're using a lot of our brain power during this lesson. So once I establish their codes and they understand this part of the project, I start to talk about the importance of choosing your colors to tell a story. And red to one student might be a totally different meaning to another student. So it's all about your creativity. I have had kids tell incredible stories that range from their families, their favorite sports, to their love of juice boxes. You know, it's just, they have so much creative things. So when I do this project, I do it on these wide notch looms, right? Now, I realize that I may or may not be warping my looms incorrectly for the past few years, but this works for me. So I go up and down the whole way. For anybody who's gasping, I'm sorry, but we're gonna put that aside.
But that kind of shows you that it does work.
Oh yeah, it totally works. It just might not be the professional way to do it. You know what I mean? So what I did here is I looped it, quote unquote, the right. And I have started it using my 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 pattern. I stuck this paintbrush under there just to lift the warp threads up a little bit. This is just cotton warp that I use. And let's talk quickly about the yarn. This is just my regular, like, at-home yarn that I make hats with, actually. At school, I use 2 different kinds. I'll use Red Heart thin yarn, so that looks like this, something like that. And I use Tratex jumbo yarn. This gives kids a lot of different color choices, a lot of different options. Some friends really love the texture and feel of the big jumbo yarn. Some friends love the thinner patterns and the more, like, the opportunity to do even more on a single piece, and it's totally their choice. So I'm all about differentiation in my classroom. So that's great.
I'm all about the jumbo because I think it would go faster.
That's also a huge thing there. Yes, because this project is the longest of grade 2. It takes us 6 to 7 weeks to complete because I have to give them 1 new code per week. And then they have several weeks of just, it's your choice, you go for it. So you might wonder, another question I often get asked is, what do you do? Do you do needles or anything like that? I do not, because they tend to get lost. So what I do, these bigger yarns tend to fray if you just shove them in there. So what you got to do is I tell the kids to lead with a loop. And we always use a tabby stitch, which is over, under, over, under. And I review this with all of them as we go. Teach them to lift every other string. Sometimes they actually will thread their pencils or what have you under up here just to lift the threads up a bit too. Now, when we reach this point, we don't want the kids cutting from both ends because it just wastes a lot of yarn. So what I have them do is scoot it about 3, and with them maybe 4 fingers away on either side, and then chop, chop, boom, boom, and then we scoot, scoot, scoot it down. I have learned, and I have done this both ways, to work from the bottom to the top of my loom. Whatever makes you feel more comfortable, you should do it. But anyways, let's get into these patterns that we can do. So this is color 1. Now I'm going to do 2. The pattern I'm doing right now is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you lead with the loop and you just go forward. I'll have the kids go with me and they'll be like, under, over, under, over, under, over, scoot, scoot, scoot. It's lovely. Oh, you got to get them involved. If it's like sing song, they're into it and they appreciate my goofery. You know what I mean?
Caitlyn, a quick question is, how many rolls of yarn would you need for a class so that they could guesstimate, so anybody listening can guesstimate like what they would order?
That is a great question. I usually use maybe 2 boxes for the entire grade. That's 4 classes, about 20 to 24 kids each. and we usually run out by the end. And that's pretty much that. Yeah, but yeah, of course. And also, if you don't have these wide notch looms, you can always use cardboard. I have a lot of friends who like to weave at home. So you can always, I teach them on like special free days. I'll be like, hey guys, what do you want to do? And they'll be like, teach us to make a loom. After this project, mind you, for the rest of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, they're asking me, when are we going to weave again? So it's very, very popular. But this is just a regular piece of cardboard with my cat's chewy food box. Took the box, cut it up. Voila. Here it is. But yeah. So as you can see, my pattern is beginning to form. Now, when you're using the jumbo yarn, it definitely takes a bit more time for the pattern to emerge. So this is just my 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 pattern, and I'll pause it there. What do we think? Yeah.
Love it.
Really, yeah, I wanted to show you. I mean, Kris, you tell me, should I do 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, or do you want me to try 1, 3, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3? Because we have a couple patterns here that I wanted to show, but give me your input. What do you want to see?
I am not sure. Just do a couple different ones, and we would love that. I love Michelle says I've passed out plastic forks for my students to push the yarn down.
Very, very well. Yes. Excellent addition.
And do you think you could do this with pre-K?
Pre-K? I don't know, but I would be certainly excited to try. I mean, with that, I would go much more narrow. And what's nice about these looms is that you can warp them to whatever width you want. So if you would need a shorter project, you can do that. Or if you have some students who are more advanced, you can make it longer at the beginning if you know who can do what. I don't teach pre-K. I have never taught that young, but I would be super excited to hear more about that. I'm going to keep going. The pattern I'm going to do next is 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, which means I would do 2 rows of black and 1 row of my next color. Hope this isn't too boring for folks to watch. What's everybody watching on Netflix? I'm watching The Office again because it makes me giggle.
You are talking to art teachers. You are demonstrating to art teachers and artists and people who are interested in art. So nobody is bored watching you at all.
I appreciate that. So this is 1, 1, and then the second row would be 2. Which color do I want to use? I'm going back to my white. I like this one. This white. See this white sparkly one? I like that. There's some sparkle in that yarn. So this is great for them to really just sort of, they start thinking about numbers, and apparently this helps you learn to code as well. So whatever part of the brain we're working, I dig it. So it's pretty cool. And there's that. We'll go back to, so that's 1, 1, 2, and now 1, 1, 2. And I tell my friends, you know, if you see your warp threads lying on top of your weft, your yarn, you may or may not have made a little mistake, but it's totally fine. We always talk about how weaving is super forgiving because you can move it and scoot it and edit as you go. So I have students who get really, really into this, and it's pretty incredible to see what friends can do, but I have nothing but success. I really have not gone wrong with this, which makes me feel really good that the kids are into it. It's very different than anything else we do. And yeah, and then they get this beautiful like tapestry wall hanging. I've had kids be like, can I make a blanket for my guinea pig King Tiny? And I'm like, yeah, you can. And I have met the guinea pig King Tiny, and he loves his woven blankets, which is just awesome. So I kind of love it.
Cute.
It is. It's awesome. And they know how much I love yarn. I start this during the winter usually, so like December, January-ish. So you can see the pattern starting to emerge. Usually you need at least 3 goes of it to really see the fishnet emerge. But it'll be there, it'll be there. And I tell them patience, patience. And then they ask, can we make our own patterns? And I'm like, obviously you can make your own patterns because we love creativity and applying your own knowledge. And what's great is they come up to me and they're like, this reminds me of a mermaid tail at the beach, drinking coffee with a donut. And I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. So I love the creativity that comes out of this, because they just get such autonomy once they understand how the codes create the pattern. So our like key phrases are: artists are problem solvers. Artists learn from cultures and countries from all around the world. That's because we'll talk a little bit about the origin. And then just, applying your own storytelling in an abstract manner, just through colors, you know what I mean? I'll show you one more pattern, and this one is going to be 1, 2, 1, 3. That's the pattern we're going with. Hope people are following. Who knows? But lead with the loop, under, over, under, over. And oftentimes I will make mistakes on purpose and see if they catch it, which is awesome when they do. I mean, yeah, because then just so they can help edit each other's work. But this gets so friendly and they are so helpful with one another, because you'll see friends sort of like, if I see a student who's really, really getting it and they're just going really fast, I remind students that I am the yarn master, so I'm the only one who cuts the yarn at first. I know that's a question. Do you let the kids get their own yarn? Not at first, because I want to give them the right amount and show them how to take it out of the box without trimming too close to the hold. Hold on, I did that wrong. Ha ha. So 1, 2, back to 1. Then I go to 3. So 1, 2, 1. See, that's what happens when you chat, when you weave.
Oh, you're doing awesome, because just for the record, I'm still on the Raya knot, which, by the way, how do you spell that? Do you know?
R-Y-A. And if it's pronounced Rhea, I apologize to the world. I've never heard it spoken by another person out loud.
Well, if we have any weavers on the webinar, please feel free to type it in the questions and share it out. But yeah, Raya seems like the right way, and R-Y-A. Very good. That was one of our questions, and I did not necessarily know, but I'm telling you, I am kind of loving it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Oh, but wait, to finish my sentence from before, I forgot. I tend to go off on tangents and then I never come back. The students who are really, really fast and advanced, they just get it. I have them become the table weaving master helper, so they become assistant coach for the day or for the duration of the lesson.
Cute.
So because I am cutting the yarn, I can't come to tables as often at first. So I'm like, all right, I need my assistant coaches. We are all here to help each other. There is no boss. There is no like, you're the best. You've reached assistant coach status if you feel comfortable, and they love it. It's a really big incentive for them to really focus. And so by the end, everybody's an assistant coach. And the only way after about week 2 or 3, I will watch students sort of, I'm like, all right, if you want to cut the yarn, I want to watch you. You do a big, like, you grab the yarn, disco up across your body, drop the yarn down, and then you trim it just above the box, which is weird to explain, but I like the disco dance move. They get into that. So when they get the thumb of trust, like, Miss Thompson, Coach T, can I have the thumb of trust? Can I cut the yarn? And I say, thumb of trust. Thumb of trust is a thumbs up, and they go, yes. And it's great. They often do. They go, Coach T, and I love it. It's so cute. I think, did I run out of yellow? Not yet. One more row, and
so
that'll be
that. Do you have a video? As I stumble with my own question, but this video is actually also on your YouTube channel.
Yes, so this weaving is on the YouTube channel. I didn't put, just to show friends like a couple of stitches. Yes. I don't give the full on lesson because I reserve that for the classroom. But I hope to actually add to, I probably won't replace it. I'll just add to it a more in-depth version. And I would love feedback if people would want to see like just one stitch at a time. Like, all right, a 3-minute video on 11111, a 3-minute video 1212 112 112. I would love to know if you want, because this as a
I'm
single
gonna
video.
answer for everybody, and the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I know that they would want that because I'm not an art teacher. Can you believe that? But I am a student and a lover of art, and we like to see. Artists and art teachers like to see, because then they can make it their own. They can figure out what they like, what they don't like, if they can
Right.
change it, all kinds of stuff. So make those videos. That's a super smart move. And
All right,
everybody will have your information because we've attached it in the handout.
Yes. Now the only other pattern that like really gets everybody super stoked is the 1 2 3 is the checkerboard pattern, which is actually just a variation of, so this is where it gets complicated. Instead of going 1 2 1 2 1 2 forever, you pause midway through to turn this into a checkerboard, and it just swaps the yarn. So the code, because, and I give students the code, I won't like give them the pattern outright. I'll be like, you got to be a problem solver, use those, flex those art muscles, and you'll do it. So if this code down here is 1 2 1 2 1 2, pause, then you switch 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 2, and at first you have deers in headlights. Everybody's like, what? But as soon as they get it, there's just an aha moment, and it's smooth sailing. It really is. So my goal, a summer goal, is to make these worksheets for like everyone with pictures of the real live weaving, which I've done. I've taken the pictures of each step, and then to have the like corresponding, if this is the pattern I want, what's the code? And again, the numbers are just the amount of colors you use. Now the only other thing, this is about, I mean, I'm not done, obviously. I would want to fill the whole thing up, but the other question I get is how to take these off the loom. And to be quite honest, I have not really taken it off the loom in this style. But what I do for this type, once it reaches, like if they have like 3 fingers at the end and the rest is filled, that's done. Or they can go from tippity top to bottom, bottom, bottom. And what's nice about this way is that I just chop it midway. I tie some knots at one end, tie some knots at the other, rest a dowel up top, and then just continue to finagle. And there is, the only de-looming video I have is on my Instagram, on my highlight reel. So if you look for de-looming, that's what you will find. But yeah, this is my squeaky scissors. Here's the Raya knots again. I wanted to show you a few more, just one more colorful example of weaving I've done with just adding a bunch of yarn. And these are all actually Raya knots, which not Raya knots, these are Raya loops. So it's a continuous pattern. Now what's awesome there,
fun.
Yeah, but you can use multiple yarns at once, but the problem here is that you need a lot of yarn, and it's a stitch that's a bit finicky. So I don't migrate. I'm only K through 4, so they're not quite ready for this. But the other personal project I wanted to show, I mean, this is, I gotta like hoist this up a bit, and I'll angle the camera down.
Love that too.
Yeah, I've used ribbon, I've used roving, I've used my I make hooded infinity scarves. I have some long tassels way at the end. But as you can see, just there's so many different textures you can create and make. This big bubbles you see here, that's called a bubble stitch, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, people. Remember, I am an amateur weaver. I have just gotten into it and I love it. So I have a lot
was that real puffy stuff? Was that like the felt roving?
Similar, but it's a little smoother.
Gotcha.
A little smoother. And like for this pack right here, I actually bought this pack, this color palette. You can see I love neutrals, right? How like creamy and amazing is this? I just want to touch it. Anyways, I bought these fiber packs from Nova Mercury. She's the lady who like sent me my first weaving like tutorial packet. So that's why like this is where this roving comes from. So it's different than the felt. I think the felt weaving is roving rather is a little more coarse. You tell me. I'm not sure. I've never done that before, but I would love to. And you see the tabby stitch in between there. Yeah. So that's what I have there. I don't know. Do you have any more questions for me?
Yes, I'm sure there are some questions. Do you have anything else to show? If not, you can flip back up to your beautiful face.
Ha! I will. I'll scoot right back. There it is. Boom. Bada boom. And there we are.
And I am, there she is, your beautiful face. Caitlyn, that was fantastic. I'm excited you guys look.
Woo!
I mean, this
that's
part might be a little
awesome.
sketchy down here, but you can always trim it up, right? But I don't know, welcome to my life. I'm a little on the sketchy side myself, but
I like that. I prefer it.
this happened to be a jumbo thing of sort of that cotton warp kind of stuff. And honestly, I knew it would work because Caitlyn had shared a wide variety of things, and she's like, you can practically do it with anything. And this was a Gap t-shirt that I cut up that had lots of stains on it, but not so much on the sleeves. So yeah, so fun. That Ryan-knot thing was so easy.
Yes, and save your like old clothes with
Grab some other questions here. Sorry, I got a little mixed up on where I was last, so let me flip down. I apologize, everybody. Hey, Caitlyn, what was the comfortable, you want them to get, you want them to be comfortable being uncomfortable? What was the quote that you said? Somebody's loving that. Actually, I am too.
I think you got it. It's finding comfort being uncomfortable. That's it. You got it. It's just
yeah.
I'm looking like, did I write any notes? But I mean, my like tagline is like, what is it? It's like creating like a classroom of confidence and individuality. Just with, I don't know. It's on my website. My mission, I should know my own tagline. But no, it's really embracing discomfort to build, because we talk about like who here has, you know, like felt that weird growing pains in your legs and ow, when you're asleep, doesn't it hurt? But then you grow and you're taller and you're like, yeah, look at all these new clothes I can fit into. So as a kid, that's like for the kiddos, but I try to like instill in them that growing kind of hurts, and it does not just apply to the students, that applies to adults too. So learn to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, because usually right beyond that hard sticking point is a moment of immense growth, which I try to apply everywhere. Let me tell you, I'm far better at coaching others than I am myself. I'm a harsh self-coach.
I think lots of us are. Okay, so here's some questions. I finally got sometimes my technology skills are so bad. Do you teach students to use one long strand so you don't have to keep cutting, or do you always cut each strand of yarn? Great question, Natalie.
Great question. Yes. So they get a big strand of yarn. So now that you can see me, what I do is with my own arm, I grab the yarn from across my body. I'll go like this. That's my disco move. And then I chop it. So they get really long pieces. And what they'll do is they'll be in line. They know exactly where to stand. And they'll be like this green, that red, and that yellow. And I go, great. 1, 2, 3, boom, snip, snip, snip. So they watch me do it for a couple weeks. So they get big, long strips back at their tables. I'm wondering if I have any like that long-ish. That way they don't have to come back over and over again. The slowest line is always that first day, but luckily everybody chooses one color. And then as they all get started, it staggers much more. And like you have friends coming up being like, hey, I'm a little ahead. Can I get some yarn for my friend at their table? And I'm like, totally.
Absolutely. we are just getting so many questions, which is so great. So thank you everybody for participating, and bear with us as I'm struggling to read them all. Sometimes I think I need my glasses maybe ramped up a little bit, but a couple people are so great too. They're like, this is so relaxing and soothing to even watch. So I told you it's better than binge watching Netflix.
Oh, and you know what? I want to show you this up here. This is how big this really is. And this is my way of calming down. If you hadn't noticed, I have a bit of energy. And this really just turns off my brain because you don't need to think. It's just, you just create and you intuitively, I actually personally like just intuitively adding color. Again, you can tell I love the creams and lace and white.
Oh, they're just gorgeous. Absolutely.
It's just so calming. So yes. So thank you. Sorry, you go ahead.
A little bit on the pre-K stuff. We do have a couple people that says that they do pre-K, the paper weaving with pre-K, the one, the NASCO lesson plan. Somebody else has used pipe cleaners with pre-K to teach them how to weave. I thought that was a great trick. Thank you, Heather. How is the string, I think, the warp attached to the cardboard? Is it just through the notches?
Good question. So for the past 4 years, that's how long I've been teaching, I have wrapped my warp around the whole thing, like going around and around and around. And it wasn't until I got my this wooden loom, my own personal one, that I realized that's not technically what you're supposed to do. So what I do is I wrap it up, can you see? And then around the notches, down and around and up. And on my website and YouTube, I have a whole demonstration of how to make your own cardboard loom. And what I do is I show how to warp properly like this. So what I will do with this, what's nice is that at the bottom, you've got all these loops already. So you won't have to make any knots. You can just, I think, and I want to experiment with this, you just scoot it all the way down. And then what you'll be able to do once it reaches the top is really gently scoot them off. So you can, these are a little flexible like that. So you just scoot those. Ooh, I lost my paintbrush. Anyways, you scoot them off. And what's nice about these loops, you can fit a dowel right in them. And then you see that I've taped these two longer pieces because I wanted it to be even. I didn't want one piece up top, one piece at the bottom, and then you can just tie these around the ends of the dowels as well. I think this will help with my delooming process because the other way requires a lot of knots. And I do this. I do not let the kids warp or deloom. I do that because they're still my second grade friends. And I find that second grade, the degrees of like level of learning are just so variable at that age because you have some who are super young, some who have like gone through a growth spurt, so they just have more dexterity. But on that note, really quick, I want to add, but anyways, I deloom everything. But after this project, I always noticed really, really big increases in our drawing skills and other things that we do with our hands, just because they have refined their motor technique so much. It forces you to really get like, they love when I get like crazy with my hands and I do things. And I asked, does anybody play a musical instrument? There's so many different things that this is going to help you with, just strengthening those little fingers.
That's perfect. And I love that. And again, back to the whole coaching thing. So one of the questions said, I am working on the first project that showed the yarn on the stick. Can I weave that project like she's doing now? So I'm thinking, do you mean like, can then you weave in it like that?
Oh man. Can I take that idea? Who said that? I'm going to borrow that. That's amazing.
Michelle said that, and I thought it was very interesting too.
Oh, that's a really great idea. See, this is why I love other educators. I love it.
Rebecca says she feels like she's watching, she says she feels like she's kind of watching you, that she enjoys listening to you. You have an excellent personality. I totally agree.
Thank you.
How do you keep kids from starting the next row with the opposite first warp string, alternating so they have a tight weave. So often they forget to do the opposite over or under. No question, just but wanted to say that this is very soothing and relaxing. That was two, I mixed two together, but how do you help them so that they don't get all confused?
So before this, so second grade, I often, at least back when, I try to, it's a study around the world. So we start with cave art. And then we go down to Egypt, and because I am a bookbinder, I know that that's where like paper and books originated. That's one of my favorite places. So I have introduced, so I'm a bookbinder by trade, and that's where books began. So I have them make their own papyrus out of paper strips. We actually use recycled paper bags.
Love
and
that.
So we make our own papyrus, and then we bind it into a little pamphlet book, which was one of the first. So it's a really, really, really watered down, a simplified version of the Nag Hammadi, and there's a really cool information on that. But the point of that whole story is that we weave our own papers like you, just with paper first, before this project even starts. It's like two projects before. So every single class at the beginning, I do a demo, even just a reminder, and I don't speak. I'm like, all right, guys, you tell me. This is our, what kind of stitch? It's a tabby stitch. Great. And that means, and they over, under, over. I'm a very inquiry-based instructor. I always have them complete my sentences, which is great. So by the time we get to this project, I explain these strings we're going over, under, and I'll show them with my fingers like this, and I'll show them like, if it looks like that and you've got a bunch of warps showing through, we might want to double check and do it. So it's really daily reminders, reinforcement at the beginning of class so they're ready to go. And just generally when I'm working, I'll just start saying like, hey guys, over, under. What's the row after? And they go, under, over, over. And I go, great, what's next? And we just start chanting over, under. Only occasionally do we get shushed by our neighbors, but like that's happened once.
Right. Welcome to the art teacher. But I love that you have talked about the process, because that is the design process, and it is the same process that scientists use in terms of design, engineering, and so much of art can be STEAM. And so while NASCO often refers to STEM and STEAM, please know that we are big believers in the A in STEAM. And the only reason we say it both ways is because there are just some that will never acknowledge that. And so we just are trying to, please everybody, which is a tough thing to do, but we know that that A is there because it is about the process. And another question was, what is the best yarn so it doesn't unravel?
It doesn't unwrap, like, so not this, I think worsted weight would be the not one to go. I think Traitex is what I always use because it's huge and jumbo. And when you say unravel, do you mean, I'm wondering, like unravel on here or unravel from the spool?
I'm guessing like where the, like where the end just gets like super unraveled, like I just unraveled this.
I think the solution there is the lead with the loop solution that I do, because for example, if you put this, and this has happened before, like way back in the day, where students won't lead with a loop like that, so they just learn to always have a loop that they go through with, because this tail will split. That's why I don't do it the other way. So I think just reinforcing the lead with the loop, if you want students, the reason I don't do needles is just because it's an extra step, and I have 40-minute classes back to back to back to back to back. There's no breaks in between, so I want them to be able to get to work as quickly as possible. And if they have multiple colors, then you got to switch in and out, and it's a supply, so there's all these reasons. But I have found that the sky is the limit with the type of yarn you use, as long as they're mindful. And we talk about being mindful. Sarah Kajewski, she taught me that's how I met Sarah. She was doing the mantra presentation over at NAEA last year, and
Yes.
I changed it a bit to make it my own, but just the thought of being mindful about what you're doing in your materials. Lead with the loop, trim the tail. Feel free to take that, use it, make it your own. So that's what I do.
Oh, absolutely. Somebody asked if they thought it could work for 9th through 12th graders, or is there more advanced weaving that would be better for them?
I think so. Yes, 100%. And honestly, I have learned a lot of what I learned through YouTube, because what you can do is there's a certain stitch called twining where I don't even want to get into explaining it, but what you can do is instead of just going straight across, you can create this scalloped, warped arches and stuff across, almost like macrame, maybe. Any
Sure.
macrameers out there? If that's my next, like, I'm an everyman. I like to do all the things. So,
Yes.
But anyways, you can.
Well, I think the weaving thing definitely starts with the basics, and then you continue to build on that. When you say code, is that Art with Coach T terminology, or is that truly weaving terminology? Because my brain would think pattern.
Oh, yes. Well, thing is, I say we use the number codes to create our colorful patterns.
Gotcha.
So this is our pattern is the fishnet. Our code is 112112, our number code, because it's easier for me to say that than reduce it to a color.
And when you weave, does the code mean that you skip over a warp string?
Really good question. And I do review that. No matter what the code is, no matter what the pattern is, no matter what day it is or which way the earth is spinning, you are going over, under, tabby stitch only the whole way through. That's a really, really good clarifying question.
So it is the change of color that makes the pattern.
Yeah. And there might be a much simpler way to do that, but everybody gets it eventually. So I'm just like, I'm going with it.
And so we're running out of time, and there's so many questions. For how to make a Raya loop, go to Art with Coach T's YouTube channel, and she has that video on there. How do you store your projects between classes so that they don't get all tangled up?
So I have them stack them this way. So if I had weaving on this end, I would put it this way, that way, and they stack it. And I have little plastic cabinets and drawers. So everything is sorted by class and by table. So we just flatten it, scoot it in, and we're good to go. So that's that.
Coach T, will you make a video on how to de-loom the piece?
I will eventually, but there is a de-looming highlight video on my Instagram page at Art with Coach T.
Awesome. So if you're looking to how to figure out how to de-loom, and I'm giggling because I was just like, I kind of started this thing and it was really, I'm like, I'm going to go back to this one because I can do it.
It's a lot. It's a lot at once. That's why I introduce code by code, one class at a time. So it's a little bit of information all at once until their brains are full. And it's pretty exquisite on the last day to be like, all right, guys, what have we learned?
Absolutely. So I, like all of you, are going to have to go to that handout and log on to Art with Coach T.
I love chatting too. Text me, like message me through Instagram. I mean, I'm on Facebook and Twitter is the same name, but I never check them. So if you only have those outlets, I do post, but it's always through the share button on Instagram. And I honestly never remember. It's just too much stuff. But I do love texting. I do love making new friends. So don't be shy. I'm not shy. So.
Oh, not even close to shy. And we are sadly out of time, and it's just crazy. This was the last of the webinars for this month, but next month, starting Monday, June 1st, we are going to start doing what's called Maker Mondays, and it's going to be a lot less of Kris Bakke and a lot more of folks like Caitlyn. In fact, on June 1st, Sandy Darden is going to take us through a visual art journal that she did during quarantine. And It's not going to be so much of a show you how to make. I would suggest bringing any kind of drawing materials and a sketchbook, or if you just want to make a single doodle kind of thing to sketch along with, and to try some different drawing tools that you have at home. She'll share supplies and things like that, but the quarantine art journal that she did is absolutely worth tuning in for. And how she does visual journals in middle school without spending a ton of money, that is also going to be super cool. Caitlyn, thank you. I have
and thank
enjoyed
everybody
getting
for
to
tuning
know
in.
you. You are phenomenal, and the fact that you are not a weaving expert, self-proclaimed not, but you're a bookbinder, tells me I think I need to have you back as a guest again in the future. Everybody out there, I can't thank you enough for being part of Nasco's tapestry and how you are woven into what we do. Our business depends on you, and we depend on what you do in our world, creating students to be creative, collaborative, communicators, and critical thinkers, and now more than ever. So thanks for joining us today. Please stay safe, be happy, and keep making art.